Okay, I would like to just announce today, since we have so many in the audience, what we're going to do for your convenience is we're going to, instead of having the Board of Adjustment meeting first, we're going to have the Planning Commission meeting first, and we're going to address item 4 in the Planning Committee, which is the Eastwoods 19th edition, which I think is the reason why most of you are here. If we follow normal procedure, we would do the entire Board of Adjustment agenda, and then we would go to the Planning Commission meeting, and that would be the 4th item on the agenda in planning. So you'd be here over an hour before we address the item that I think a lot of you are here for. So what we'll do is we'll call the July 23rd Watertown City Planning Commission together, and we'll ask for a roll call.
Stein,
Here.
Stoneberger,
Here.
Arnold,
Here?
Dolly,
Here.
McGuire's absent, Johnson's absent, and Shriver's absent. We have a quorum.
Okay. We're going to, I'd like to make, approve the agenda, but I'd like to move number 4 up to number 1 on that agenda. Actually, should we do number 1? I suppose we'll move that up to number 4 up to number 1, and then approve the agenda with that change and moving the rest of them on down. I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Okay. Motion and second. Okay, we have 4 people, pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of moving that up to number 1 on the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Motion's been approved, the agenda's been amended to move number 4 up to number 1. Okay, we have today 4 people on the Planning Commission that are here, and we have several that are absent, which you just heard. The Planning Commission requires 4 votes in favor of anything to pass. So that would mean today, of the members that are here, you'd have to applicants, you'd have to have 100% unanimous approval to see this approved today. Just so you're aware of that. You'd have to have all 4 of us voting in favor of your request.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dennis. My name is Rod Young. I'm with Austin Engineering. I think due to the absence of some of the members here, and I think it'd be more comfortable to have all of them here to hear it out and to have a fair quorum on this item. So I'm here to withdraw this, the annexation zoning and platting at this time. So, I mean, it would be more balanced for everybody, so you can have a decent public hearing for everybody.
So we show up and they don't, so.
Okay.
we penalize for it? Really?
All right, and that's the applicant's decision and choice to do that. He can withdraw it from the agenda if he chooses, and I realize we have many of you here that came for that reason only, and I appreciate that, but I understand why he's requesting that. City Attorney, do we need any direction or advice beyond that?
No, I think if you acknowledge the applicant's request to withdraw, if that's what you're asking, that the Plan Commission, that they accept your request for withdrawal of your application, I think that in times past when that's happened, when we've lacked a full complement of Plan Commission members, that we then go ahead and re-advertise it at the Plan Commission's expense, since you're here and all the folks are here, but we don't have the 7 members of the Plan Commission.
Quorum, Stanton, that's all you need.
And
That's all you need.
we do have a quorum, but the Plan Commission, but the applicant is requesting withdrawal of the application, and that's their prerogative, and the Plan Commission can accept that request.
Would that be in 2 weeks then, Dennis, or?
That would be in the August meeting, which would be August.
It'd be August
August.
20th, I believe is the correct date. It'd be 4 weeks, 1 month.
Okay. That's when it would be put, if you brought it back, that's when it would come back up.
And we more than likely, after visiting with the applicant and the related people that's involved with this, I would feel more comfortable in doing that. At this point, I don't think
Okay.
they realize the public input that's going to be on that at this time.
What I would say, as far as a member of the Planning Commission, we do have a quorum to answer your question. We can act on this, but if the applicant withdraws it from the agenda, that's his prerogative. See what I'm saying?
And Stan,
Okay, let's,
you did say that the city would re-advertise it, so all the property owners are going to get notification of the next meeting, correct?
Yeah, anyone that's required to get personal notice of the next public hearing will get the same notice that they did for this hearing. So, yep.
We didn't get notified of this one. I only
Kenny,
knew about it
Kenny, can I
because the
ask,
mayor brought it up at the end
Kenny,
of the council
can I
meeting
ask you a
on Monday.
question on that? If I'm
Yes,
not-
okay,
if I'm
Mayor
not
Thorson.
mistaken, may I speak one second? On that, when the people were notified, it went to the landowners surrounding, is that correct?
Yeah, Jeff actually does a
And
public notice in this, but yeah,
Jeffrey?
we only have to notify the adjacent
So-
landowner.
So the adjacent landowners, when you look at that, is
That-
Get any notification.
So Eggland surrounds
Eggland
it,
is-
so
is
is
the
that the only
city of
people they
Watertown.
notified?
the city of Watertown got notice?
Yeah, it was, city of Watertown, and then the property to the north and the property to the east are the immediately required, adjacent landowners that were
Okay.
sent
I would request, if I may speak, excuse me.
Yes,
Mike.
go ahead.
I would request that we extend that out further.
I do
Okay.
that.
Very good.
Okay, Mr. DeYoung?
Can you hold a minute? I got a person that, from Costello who's purchasing the property. I need to converse with her a minute here.
Okay. Yeah, in the meantime, I'm just going to make a statement. Part of it's already been stated, but that particular property is bordered on three sides by city property, if you consider the highway being city and then the landowner to the north. So it's surrounded by city property. When that particular piece of property was master planned in 2006, it is now zoned and the master plan is commercial. I don't know if you all knew that or not, but it is commercial. It's not R1, it's commercial. So what the developer is asking to do is downgrade the zoning from commercial to a residential, multiple family. So they could come back with a commercial request to put anything commercial, convenience store, whatever in there, and it's already been master planned that way. That's the way that would not require us to approve that. That's already been approved that way back in 2006. So just so you're aware of that. So they're downgrading, usually commercial, and then it's less restrictive for multiple family, and then you go to single family below that. So, Mr. DeYoung,
Yeah, so you want to withdraw it after conversing.
the applicant that's requesting to.
And bring it back at a later date.
Okay, the motion's been made. Hold it, okay.
She told me, and I interpreted it wrong. Let's proceed.
Proceed with.
Let's proceed with it, because she wants us to. Excuse me, pardon me, I didn't hear it quite.
Okay, okay. So there is no motion to withdraw it, and then just to back up what I just stated, just for your information, right now it is commercial.
It's
It-
outside of the city
in the
limits.
in the master plan, which every developer needs to do in this city, when you do a master plan of your property, you specify what the zoning is going to be within that master plan. Now, and that's the way the preliminary plan and so forth is brought forward. Now, at that point, you may not choose to bring all of those lots or all of that property in at the same time. You only bring in X number or however much you want to. But in the big picture, the master plan is this is where we're going. So that's where it's important when you buy property, you need to make sure you know what you're buying property next to. Even though it's not being sold at that point, but it's in a master plan if it's within, in bordering property, and that's what you'll see all around the city. So just so you're aware of that, but, okay, I think with them leaving it on the agenda now, what we'll do then is move ahead then, and we'll open up the public hearing on item number 1 on the Watertown City Planning Commission, East Woods 19th edition, the annexation, zoning, and plating. So anyone here to speak on that behalf? Just come on up to the microphone and state your name and,
Good afternoon.
I'm sorry. You got me all befuddled here today. No, not you. No, but Jeff, would you just
Yep.
review with us what we're actually reviewing? Everybody knows, but would you go through that and actually what we're looking at here today?
Absolutely.
Got off on kind of a rocky, rough start here, but we'll get back on target here.
That's perfect. This property right here is the property in question. It is currently outside of the city limits, and they're requesting to be brought into the city limits with R3 multifamily residential zoning and then they also want that property to be platted. As you can see from the picture, it's currently adjacent to agricultural land on the south and the west sides, R3 on the east, and it's adjacent to county on the north. This lot is approximately 3.5 acres and meets all of the minimum lot requirements to be zoned R3. According to our comprehensive land use plan, this area, it was planned to be zoned residential, which R3 is residential. And I would like to note that I've received 3 phone calls from people within the area that are against the R3 zoning designation. And then I already had the plan up, but our last master plan for this area was in 2006, which, as you mentioned, had this area being zoned C2 local commercial. With that, there are 3 items to vote on. First is the annexation, second is the zoning, and third is the plating. I'll leave that to you guys. I'm here to answer any other questions.
Okay, I think with that explanation, then we'll open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of this issue? Okay, yes, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Joan Franken, Costello Companies. We represent the developer and the purchaser of the property, not the current owner, just to make that clear. So we we plan to build, if approved, a 54-unit apartment complex consisting of 3 buildings. One building will have approximately, it will have 38 units, and then there will be 2 8-unit townhome buildings, one having 3-bedroom units and one having 2-bedroom units. These units will be set aside for individuals and families that make 60% or below of the area median income for Watertown. And so that is what our proposal is. I believe pictures have been shared with the city as far as what the building will look like and what we have built. It will be identical to a complex that we have in Sioux Falls as far as the 3-story building. And I guess I can answer any questions that the commissioners have for me, or when the public states if they have any questions for me as well.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone, before she sits down, with anybody on
Yeah.
the board have a question?
First off, this is kind of towards Jeff.
Okay.
Explain the parkland set aside for this.
Okay, I contacted Jay DeLang with the Park Department and asked him about park dedication because I know that within this quarter section, park has already been dedicated. And I'll pull up the master plan. I'm sorry, it's hard to see, but this area right here was designed to be the park dedication, and that was the park dedication for this whole quarter section, and that was dedicated to the city in April of 2003 with Eastwood's 4th edition. And Jay said that because the park dedication he felt was already met with this development because it was already part of this quarter section's plan. So this is the park dedication, which, going back to this map, I'll turn off my zoning, is this area right here.
Okay, and do we have any kind of a drainage map of this area?
The city land here is also owned by the city as part of the drainage, as part of the Willow Creek master drainage plan that drains down to the ponds that are just north of Willow Creek Drive. So it drains down through here. This is all city land and continues south.
Okay, go back north.
Yep.
The area down to the right of your pointer there
Yep.
is an area that was supposed to drain, and it's not draining properly. The city had a meeting on the drainage of that, and I wasn't at that meeting, but it was a big enough problem. The city had a meeting, and I don't know what the outcome was. But if it's not draining properly now, the land that we're talking about today slopes that direction, so that would just, in my opinion, would probably increase your drainage problems, and maybe instead of having it damp there, you'll have a realistic slough there. I don't know what is the developer planning on doing about that?
So, when our engineers took a look at this site, that is correct, it's going to drain to that area there. And, as part of their calculation, if we get approved by the state, which we won't know until November, they'll work with the city to work that drainage out. We're familiar with situations such as these, but as far as what we have talked with the city engineer about and how it flows down through what Jeff had showed before, again, we'll have to do those official calculations after we've been approved. This won't, if we are approved, it won't start construction until May of next year. So we'll have some time to work that out, but.
Okay, when the city had the meeting for the drainage,
Can I weigh in a little bit? I'm the new city engineer, and this drainage area has been brought to our office's attention. And so we'll be taking the view of the engineering that may or may not be able to be done here, but that's kind of a separate issue to this process. No matter what is built on this parcel that's being proposed to be brought into the city will drain to that drainage ditch, whether it stays grass or whether it becomes paved for whatever purpose, that will have to utilize this drainage basin. So we will evaluate the drainage basin and see what we can do for engineering solutions to make it better. But that is a totally independent thought to what's being presented to this board. So I will say that we're going to review it, we're going to seek solutions, but it's kind of a completely side issue to the purpose of this
not necessarily,
process.
because if the drainage off that land exacerbates the problem for these property owners, it will affect them, directly affect them. So that's why we would like to get I would like to get some assurances that this is not going to increase their problem.
Correct, and part of their process and planning coming forward will address their drainage and any water quality issues coming into this. But ultimately, whether it receives it incrementally or partially or all at once is irrelevant as far as, I mean, this property will drain through that drainage basin. That whole section of town and anything that's incorporated outside of this area ultimately will use Willow Creek as its drainage basin. And we, as the engineering staff, will make sure that the developers all follow the plan for that area. But to isolate one parcel of property is not what the intention of annexation and the zoning issue is right now, so.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about isolating the property, but I'm not sure what transpired, and maybe somebody can relate what
I was
transpired
at-
when the city had that meeting.
When we had that
If there's a
meeting, and we,
solution in
and we,
hand,
were you
fine.
at the meeting? We had several
No.
residents here. That's the one you're
Oh,
talking
yeah, I was
about. You
at-
weren't here.
I was at that one.
Right, and
But the
that's,
city had a total meeting that was just specifically for this individual drainage area.
You know, John, I was not at that meeting either, but I will tell you the direction that we're taking on that piece of property now, because it is an issue. You know, there's water standing up there. You can see, you know, where it's darker brown at that right through there. There's water standing there, and that should not be. So what we're planning on doing, and Shane is absolutely correct, we're looking at putting in actually plowing in drain tile through that whole area from 14th Avenue all the way down to 10th Avenue so that it goes into Willow Creek. At that time, we will put that in to a level that's not going to totally dry it up, but it will reduce most of the water. And then again, what we're going to do is plant different grasses. We're going to hopefully allow every landowner that's on that south side hook up to that drainage tile with their sump pump so it isn't going on top of the water. So they'll have that opportunity to put it into the drain and get it out to go through Willow Creek. So Shane is addressing this, and that
okay.
will absolutely be addressed. We have put dollars into the budget for this next year to be able to put the tiling in there and the land, you know, for grasses, and I believe there's other trees. I think Roger Foote, I don't know if he's here, Roger came up with a plan on different types of trees and grasses we can use in there also.
Okay,
But
thank you. That's
drainage needs-
the
that needs to
kind
be
of
done.
answer that I'm looking for.
We
or
gotta
was
get
looking
that
for.
done, whether this happens or not, and it will
Okay.
get done next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, because that was a question we'd had a few months ago. And the city has addressed that and has a plan to deal with it, so good, good. We haven't heard that, all of us haven't heard that probably yet, so, good. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jeff, would you confirm that this is actually, this piece of property right now is zoned commercial, in fact?
Right now, it's in the county, it'd be county agricultural. The master plan originally had it being planned as being zoned commercial, but currently it's not zoned within the city at all. Once, if annexed, then there'd be the zoning, so that's why those are different resolutions. So if you guys choose to recommend to the council to annex it, you would also recommend a zoning designation, and the applicant is requesting R3 zoning designation, but currently it's county land.
Okay, anybody else?
And if they wanted to bring it in commercial, then it wouldn't require board approval?
It still would. Any zoning action still comes to you guys, but if it was with an approved preliminary plan that was effective, I mean, it would be anticipated that as long as they're following their plan, that it would be approved.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. That's why we require developers to present a master plan of their property. Yes. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I got a question for
Okay,
Joan.
Mr. Stonebarger?
So this is going to be government-assisted low-income housing, is what you're building?
This is housing that is built with tax credits, so it is not project-based assistance subsidized. What the tax credits do is they lower the amount of permanent loan debt that we put on there, so we can hold our rents at lower levels. The rents will range based on the income, area median income from Watertown. The rents range from $368 all the way up to $1,022 currently. So that is what we would be restricted to in those ranges.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience then that would like to come forward and speak, address this issue? Just state your name and who you are.
Okay, my name is Leanne Youngin. I live at 1273 Cherry Drive. I am the third house from the corner where it curves there, right there. I just wanted to, you guys just approach my first thing is that it isn't designated right now. It isn't zoned because it isn't in the city proper, or city limits. I just feel that there's already multifamily dwellings that are right next to it. There's plenty of duplexes, and there's already 3 current apartment buildings in this area. If you were to go down, I counted yesterday on my way home from 10th Street, or 10th Avenue Northeast to 14th Avenue Northeast, backing up the city property, and then to the area just to the east of this that is still Cherry Drive, there are 44 single-family homes, and there are 56 already current multifamily dwelling units. The average for Watertown and the last census was 18% for the city. We are over 50% already in this small section, and add 56 more or 54 more units, that is more than the single-family homes. That is gonna more than double the multifamily dwellings. I just feel as a citizen that this is overextending this area. This is an already established development of $300,000 to upper $200,000 to $300,000 houses. And I think that if we were to build more multi-units, that it would bring down our property values. The school district, Lincoln School, is already on a big waiting list. They are already over full. I know that there are other areas in town that could be developed for this that aren't established neighborhoods. I have no problem with it being annexed into the city limits. I welcome that. I just feel that there should be more R1 and R2 buffers to the current R3 that are already there. I understand that you guys are saying that agricultural is a buffer, but it's my backyard. I can see across that 100 yards or 100 feet. I just think that it's not necessarily fair to the people that already have built their homes there. This was my dream home. I don't want to have a apartment building right behind me. I just, we built not knowing that this was going to be there. Whether it was a convenience store or whatever was slated for it, it wasn't actually designated in the city limits yet. So, any other questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the board? All right, thank you.
I guess I'm next here. My name is Mike Odland. I live at 1279 Cherry Drive, which would be this house right here. I'm Leanne's next door neighbor. In regard to being notified about the meeting, I'm an adjacent landowner and I didn't receive any notification. The only reason I knew about this is because I was at the Monday night city council meeting and the mayor mentioned it at the end of the meeting. And that was my first knowledge that this project was even on the table. And all of the landowners that my wife and I have canvassed the neighborhood the past few days, and there's not a single landowner that was aware that this was proposed or coming down the pipeline. And there was not a single one in favor of it. In fact, when I told them that the plan is to zone this R3 and bring in government subsidized R3 multifamily housing units, a lot of them, almost the universal response was, "You've got to be kidding me." As Leanne mentioned, to the east, just south of 14th Avenue, there are 3 or 4 already R3 buildings there. You put 3 more of them there, and you would have essentially 7 in a row along 14th Avenue North. It mentions in city ordinance that one of the stated goals of R3 multifamily housing is to provide necessary space for off-street parking of automobiles. So if you have 54 units there, tell me where there's going to be off-street parking when 14th Avenue Northeast is a half road with no curb and gutter to the north, and it's wide enough to get 2 vehicles down. If you start parking vehicles on 14th Avenue North there, you're going to shut the road down to traffic because it's not wide enough. So where are all these people going to park? That's a concern I have. I was at the special drainage meeting last month. It was a 2.5-hour meeting, very well attended. And again, my house is this one right here. So when I look out my back window when I'm sitting at my dining room table, I see this. And you asked about bringing up a drainage map. That's really a misnomer because there is no drainage. It's wet all the time. I walked back there after work today, and I've got pictures. There are reeds that are taller than I am, that are probably 7 feet tall back there. I invite any of you to take a drive up and take a look for yourself. This is land that should be mowed and maintained by the city. You can't mow it because it's never dry. There's no grade change from here to here is flat. This water drains into this channel and it sits. And it's a haven for bugs and mosquitoes and it stinks. And we've been assured by the city, and I was told by Sarah Karen, you were there, Austin Engineering was there, Clark Engineering was there, Mike Danforth was there, Don Roby was there. We were told at that meeting, we recognize this is a problem, we're going to fix it. It may have to be done in phases depending on costs and how much money, how and when we can fit it into the budget, but we're going to fix it. And we left that meeting feeling pretty good, and now we get blindsided by this. And to the residents of this neighborhood, when we've got this problem with no drainage and it's always wet and never maintained, the fact that the city now is considering putting in 54 more units in basically our backyard at the epicenter of where this drainage problem is, without first fixing that, it's kind of insulting. Frankly, the timing of this is terrible. Fix that problem for the neighborhood before you decide what you're going to put there next.
Anybody else have a question? Anything else?
No? I just hope that you take.
No, and I appreciate you,
And you
appreciate your
folks have to-
comments.
You know, you're elected, you're appointed, and you have to work in the best interests of the people of this city. And I hope you think long and hard before you take this vote today.
No.
Again, and I would agree with Leanne. The people I talked to, we're not opposed to annexation. It's a great neighborhood. We have a mixture of retirees, people that are close to retiring, young adults raising families. It's a fabulous neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. And everybody that I've talked to, they're not against annexation. We don't think that that land should never be developed. But we've got an existing problem with drainage that's been going on for years that has not been solved. Let's fix that.
Right,
And then
and
let's decide what's gonna go there, because if you put 54 units in there with a lot more roof, a lot more parking lot, a lot more concrete and asphalt, it's gonna affect the amount of drainage, where that water drains, and like John mentioned, I think it could take a problem that exists now and make it even worse.
But if
Yeah.
I may, Mike,
And-
I thought I just said we were gonna get that fixed next year. The dollars
That's-
are in the budget. They are in the budget, folks. We put in plenty of dollars that we can plow that drain tile in there. It's gonna get done.
And that was our
Well,
concern as a
but-
planning commission, several months ago, prior to the meeting with the city, was we had concern with the drainage because that was brought up by residents before. And that's what sparked the discussion and eventually the meeting and the plan developed to take care of the drainage. So the drainage is one issue. The complex, the annexation and the type of zoning that goes in is another issue. Those are two separate issues. And I
they
understand
are
why
and
you're
they
tying
aren't.
them together. I understand why you're saying that
Yep.
because that's your concern
Yeah.
right now. But
Well, if, you can talk, Mayor, about a plan for putting drain tile and things in, but how can an engineer sit down and figure out a plan that is gonna work before they know exactly how that project is going to affect the amount of drainage and where it goes? You can't, as an engineer, you can speculate how this is going to, I'd hate to see the city put in a bunch of money, and the city shouldn't even have to be paying for this to begin with. This was a developer, an engineering problem that the city shouldn't, in my opinion, be responsible for. You're cleaning up someone else's mess here, and that's not right.
But Mike, the city did buy that property for the simple reason for water retention. That's why the city bought it. They bought that entire piece there. Am I correct, Sarah? When the city bought the land, they bought it for water retention. So it's not all developers. We had planned on draining water through there. That's my understanding. That's why they bought it, Mike.
Well, I understand that, but the residents have been told, Mayor, for a long time that we're gonna fix it, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna fix it. At what point do you run out of patience and throw up your hands and say, I give up? It's not gonna get fixed.
Well, I get it. I understand that. I fully do. And I've been walking through that area. God, Mike, you and I went through there 2-3 times. We had the last city engineer was up there walking with us. And we do have Shane on board. Shane, you can attest, I put this as my highest priority to get this done. So I have full
And
confidence.
I don't doubt
I have
that the
full
city-
confidence in our engineers to get this done, Mike.
And
if it's at all possible, there's no reason why we couldn't do it later this fall. Those people can come in with that equipment and plow that in very easily. It's in the budget. We can work with our finance department and slide those dollars into 15. That's not a huge issue.
Aside from the
money-wise.
drainage issue, and then I'll let someone else talk here, but I was talking to someone today, I won't name them, they were a city employee, and they summed it up perfectly. They said, I understand the need for lower income housing and everybody needs a place to live, and I agree with that, my neighbors do too. But he said, not here. I mean, we've got $350,000 homes that are already established in that neighborhood. There has to be other options for this developer to look at, better fits than an established neighborhood that has a pre-existing drainage problem. Thank you.
anyone else? Come on up.
Joan Franken, Costello Companies. I'd like to address just a few of the items that were brought up. First of all, when we develop apartment units, and they're called affordable housing units, we don't look for affordable housing locations. We look for good locations. There are no just good affordable housing locations, because usually they want that, they call it that type of housing, by railroad tracks, by industrial. They don't want it in the good locations as if it were going to be a market rate complex. These rents range up to $1,000. You're talking about individuals making $16 an hour down to $10 an hour. So when we talk about subsidized housing, this is not subsidized housing. Again, this is affordable housing. Watertown had a housing needs study done, and it's crucial to add more affordable housing units for people to move into, so that they are not paying all of their income and only 30% of their income to their rent. So again, this is not subsidized housing, it's affordable housing. One of the other items is parking, and we have planned our site plan, and it's got the established parking to meet the needs. We don't plan on having any off-street parking, because there won't be any need for it. On-street parking. But we also have the green space. We are putting in 2 playgrounds that will be similar to the park playground that is just to the south, and that's what we're required to do for our properties that we develop. So I just wanted to address that. Again, this is a great location. It's by a middle school, and again, where Mike addressed, there are other better locations for this type of housing. Again, I would argue on the other side, this is a good location. It's right next to R3 too, and then also across the street, that is undeveloped property. Multifamily buffers, single family. When you're laying out a development, we have laid out developments all across the state, primarily in Sioux Falls, but we buffer single family from that commercial development.
Say, Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have the photos or the mock-ups that we could share with people so they can at least see what the view that's been shared with us of the concept? I mean, I think that looks like a facility that wouldn't be expected for the type of housing that everybody expects this to be.
Do you have this in one of your folders, Ken? I'm not sure where folder it's in. Jill will pull it up for us.
It'll look good now, but what about in 10 years?
We also manage the property, and
Are you on site every single day?
we have, yes, there will be somebody that comes out to, there's an office that will be in this building, so, yes.
Yeah, what happens when the tax credits run out and you decide to expire and you decide to sell the building? What are they gonna do with that? They can do whatever they want, right?
We can't sell the building for 40 years. We can't sell the property for 40 years. It has to maintain its affordability.
If we have other questions, I'd like to ask you to come forward, because there might be other people that are watching this on television. They'd like to hear the questions too. So if you have a question, that's fine. Just come forward and we'll let you ask your question and have an answer for it, or let them give you an answer for it.
Do you have the actual?
Okay, is this your mock-up drawing here?
That's a drawing, but I have
We have a-
actual pictures of what we built in Sioux Falls that I thought were shared.
There's a couple of ones here. Open them up. We can put it on right here, and Tim can pull it up if you have a site plan.
Okay, I have a site plan too.
So,
Here's the site plan, and here's this. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. Set it right there. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
pull that out.
Okay, you've been flashing several pictures up there. Do you want to tell us what you're showing us?
Exactly. So this is, this building will be identical to the building here that we built in Sioux Falls. We built 2 buildings, 62 units. You see one of the playgrounds, there's another playground on the other side of the other building. It's called an e-urban plan that we got from some architects down in Texas, developed this. It's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The 3 bedrooms are on the corners and only on the first and second level for families to live above families for noise. And then in the center of one of the buildings, as you walk in, there is a, what we call a clubhouse area with a full kitchen, the TV, the couches, tables, 2 bathrooms, and an office. And then these are, these have interior corridors, make you feel like you're going into your own unit from the outside, even though they are heated and conditioned spaces. Here's the inside of one of the units. This is a 1-bedroom unit. Each of the units have all the appliances, and then also each unit includes a washer and dryer. Central air, we Energy Star certified every unit. And here also, those cabinets are not black, they're a dark brown, but anyway, for the finishes on there. We also, for property management, all of our applicants have to be screened. They have to pass we're crime-free housing, so criminal background check. It's very stringent, and then also the credit check history and landlord references in order to move into our complex. The units are inspected once a year by the management company, and then the agencies, South Dakota Housing, as well as our banks and investors come in once a year. So those units, a unit could be inspected up to 4 times a year. Tenants are infracted if they are not taking care of their units. Tenants are infracted for things laying outside on the lawn if we find out that it's theirs. We have them professionally mowed, they're upkept, we walk grounds for garbage. We've got, I believe, 6 other complexes in and around Watertown, and I would just take a walk around those. When you drive by this property here, it doesn't look like what affordable housing. When we were constructing these, we got multiple calls for people over income and asking if they could buy one of our condo units. So again, we'd like it to fit in the neighborhood and that it's going into, and again, we do professionally manage these, and we take pride in that.
Do you have an aerial view that shows the location of the buildings in the parking lot? And
Yep. Right. So the bigger building at the bottom is the 38-unit building. There's a picnic area right on the back there. Yep.
We have a laser pointer,
Okay,
this
thank
button
you.
right there.
Thank you.
Yep.
The picnic area, whoops.
What direction would that be, Jeff? Or
That's
sir,
the south
The
portion
south.
of the.
that would be south
Yes.
where your pointer is?
Yes. So we've got the 2 player areas here, everything we put in sod, and then we've got 2 townhome buildings. One will have 8 3-bedrooms, and one will have 8 2-bedrooms. So the 3-story building right here.
So the middle one is a 3-story, and
Yep.
the other 2 are the 2-story?
Yes. Yep.
And these are all for rent, not for sale?
They're all for rent.
Okay, you have a
Okay.
question?
I just want to clarify then, that 3-story building is going to be, would be 125 feet from my back lot line. That would be the closest one. The largest building would be closest to all of the single-family homes that are down here. So this is the 38 unit?
Yes. Yes.
And so if this is my home, I'm going to walk out my backyard and I'm gonna look directly at the 38 unit, 3-floor building.
Can you show us that?
Yeah, what kind of landscaping would be here that would block my view from looking at that 3-floor building?
Well, nothing.
So I'm gonna look directly at it. So I built a big covered deck so I can sit out to look at a 3-story building.
And did you build your covered deck so you could just see vacant ground the whole time?
No, we planned on something being there, but
A
I
Casey's?
was,
Would you like to see a Casey's there?
no, that where it
Or a
would
gas
be,
station?
that would be where we would like to have it zoned as more R2 to buffer the current R3 that's already there.
Zoning.
Like I said, if this goes in, it is gonna, there's already 54 or 56 current multifamily dwellings in this 3-block radius and down here and all along this road.
Yep.
So there's already 56 current multifamily dwellings. If we had another 54, that's just crazy. There's only 44 single-family homes in this area. And that's 56 or 54 more families that are gonna be going to the school that's already full. That's my thoughts anyways.
Okay. The question was asked at the table up here, and I'm just gonna say it publicly, and Stanton, maybe you can ask it. But when we look at this, it's the annexation, we'll address this in 3 votes. Annexation, zoning, and plating. So the annexation is whether or not it comes into the city. Secondly, it's how it comes into the city, and how it's zoned. And then thirdly, what the building and the site looks like. Am I correct in that or not?
No, just the plating of the lot, the four corners, and that's probably not a good explanation.
Just a description.
Yep, because there aren't really four corners on this particular site, but the corners of the lot, that's the plat.
Our code states that a property has to be platted before a building can be erected. So the platting just allows for a building. It doesn't matter what zone it would be zoned. Any zone would need to be platted to have a building right.
So it could be annexed in, and it could be platted, and the zoning could be R1, R3, whatever, commercial. That's separate, but
Whatever what you and council decided. I mean, you make the recommendation, council makes the decision.
Are there
Okay.
any other questions for me?
well, I'm not sure. Someone standing in the back. Would you like to come up? Come on up. Yeah, come on up to the microphone so everybody can hear you. Thank you.
I'm Carrie Ness. We're actually the 4th house from the corner, so next to Leanne. We just moved into the neighborhood at the end of April. When we moved in, there wasn't even room for our son at the elementary school that's closest to us. Actually, the 2 elementary schools that were closest to us. So to see that there's gonna be all these families living there you're gonna be busing kids across town, because there's no room in our public school system, which I'm sure all of you know that. My second thought is, there's no garages. So where are all the toys and bikes and all that stuff gonna go? I had another thought and I totally lost it.
Why don't you just stop right there for a second? You want to answer the question on the bikes and all the toys, and because I think that's a very legitimate question too. When you've got 54 families with kids, there's a lot of stuff. Where's it all going to be?
Joan Franken, Costello Companies. So in my picture of chasing willows too, they can't leave their stuff outside. They can, I shouldn't say stuff, their toys. We have bike racks, and that's where their bikes go, is in the bike racks. So other than that, they have to go up into their unit, and we do patrol that. And so I'm addressing that.
Mm-hmm.
What does the managers? Have you seen our other affordable housing complexes in Watertown? Okay.
Okay.
I'm just.
So you have bike racks, to
Yep.
and management controls that they put them in there. As far as the rest of the things, you don't allow them to be outside. That's what you're saying?
Like the toys and stuff like that, yes. That the grounds have to be picked up.
Okay.
So-
All right.
So
Now
do
I
you-
We
now,
don't, there are.
I interrupted you. I'll
There
get
are
back
nights,
to you.
I'm sorry, there's a night where there's a ball. You come the next day, there's a ball that goes into the office. So hopefully somebody's looking for their ball, and that's where it is. That's when the managers come in the morning, they walk the grounds in the morning. That's their job. That's what we expect them to do. So again, I'm not saying that you're not gonna drive by at 7 o'clock at night and there won't be a ball laying out, but by 8:15 the next morning, it probably won't be there. So, just to.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
One more clarification. You have the people here that will be living here. It doesn't mean they're gonna be necessarily 54 new families in Watertown. Those kids are already probably going to those schools. So just to clarify that. Thank you.
So Joan, with your 54 units,
Yes, sir.
how many parking spaces are you allowed for?
In this, well, because we were gonna have we were gonna request a variance, but I think you require one for every bedroom. That was changed last year, yes. And so with this one, stalls provided is 91, and I believe we need to find room for 14 more if we wanna be in compliance, full compliance, but that was going to be a next. We have sent a letter requesting a variance for that. This is not student housing. We can't, typically, two working adults will not qualify to live there because that income would put them over the 60% of area median income. It's typically a single adult with children that go into these 3-bedroom units. So, and again, we have 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units in this complex.
And how many total bedrooms do you have in this complex?
I don't officially, let me look, I have that calculation.
Okay.
Yep.
I believe.
Okay.
Let me just,
Ken?
I
Okay.
believe they were gonna apply for 109 and variance it down to 89. Instead of requesting 1 per bedroom, they were requesting 2 per apartment, which is the way the previous ordinance read before we changed it for the VOTEC kids.
Yes. 106 would be required according to your current
Right.
ordinance. Yes.
Is that
Could
106
you
bedrooms,
get
or-
106 on that property with revisions?
We could with
Could you?
revisions, yes. We'd move one of the playgrounds to the south of the picnic area and create some parking.
Okay, now back to your next question.
Well, obviously, I just moved into the neighborhood, so I moved into an existing home. But I do know one of the homeowners that couldn't be here today, she was told from the beginning that that would be developed by the owners of the lot that she bought it from, that would be developed as R2 at the least, because it would be twin homes or duplexes. That was one thing I was told. The other thing I was told by another developer is that this neighborhood was developed to have apartment buildings, which, by the way, the apartment buildings that are up there look amazing. I think they do a great job. I drove by there like 3 or 4 days, probably only 3 days, because I just found out Monday night or Tuesday or whatever. 3 mornings in a row, and one morning at like whatever time I leave for work, I won't even tell you because you'll think I'm lazy, but there was a little pink teeny tiny bicycle sitting right by the building. Otherwise, every
Unless they put
single
some kind
day,
of
there
fence
was
around
not a thing laying there. Like, they do a wonderful job. I mean, they do a great job keeping track of, what's going on and not leaving a bunch of junk laying. There's no bike racks that I saw. There was just a teeny tiny, like, 2-year-old bike sitting there. And then when I got home from work, it was gone. So they don't. They also, yes, they have garages. So they keep track of their stuff. Yes, and it's not income-based at all. But when I did talk to the developer, he said this neighborhood was developed to have apartments, but it was developed to have apartments buffered from the homes by twin homes and duplexes. So it was never set up to have apartments. This is what I've been told anyways, to have apartments right next to houses, which is what you have, like she said, 100 feet.
And that is typically what we do, right? To buffer it
there's-
to gradually move into the
Right.
multiple family.
And like he's, what we pay in taxes would be, I mean, my house value is gonna go down because of this.
I could see
You know that,
R2.
you build
I can't
homes.
see an R3.
So why shouldn't my taxes go down then? Which isn't gonna happen. I'm not even gonna dream about that. But yeah, that's what, I mean, everybody knows this has to be developed. Watertown, that's what they're doing, they're growing. But we just want it developed like R2, not R3. So we're not trying to buck the
That's true,
system
'cause
and say,
I
hey,
don't see
we expect
50
that
feet
to
of
be
bare land as the buffer.
land there forever.
What's really important to me, and I build homes too and work with a lot of people, is did you know what the property was adjoining you? If you bought a lot, built a house, knowing that whatever could potentially be there someday, that's one thing. But if you didn't and assumed, were you told or not told? I don't know.
We
But
weren't
I think that's very important that people know that, because then they get surprised later when something comes up. So I don't know on the master plan how that was shared. I wasn't here at that time, so I'm not sure, but.
Right, and that's why I say, when we moved in, 2 months ago now, with all these drainage things and apartment things hitting us, we were never told, but the people that originally bought those lots, from what I'm told, the house on the corner and I guess I don't know what Leanne and Troy were told, but was told that would be more than likely, it will be, because it was the same landowner that they bought their lots from, will be duplexes or twin homes. So to go from that to apparently there's gonna be a 3-story apartment building in your backyard is a little bit of a, I mean, you can understand the frustration. I think,
Okay,
I hope. Thank you.
thank you. Just a minute, any questions? Yeah, comments? Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a question for the property. What's the police call rate to the buildings that you have? I mean, I don't live up there in that neighborhood, and I'm not on the board, to vote on this, but as a citizen speaking, what's the crime rate, or not so much the crime rate, but the amount of calls that go to the buildings that you currently have? I know they are, because I know who managed it, and I know you had numerous calls to these properties. So do you have any records of, we get 5 calls a week, 10 calls a week?
I don't, and I can check. You mean at our other properties or?
Please come forward again, because I'm getting text messages up here from people that are watching online that can hear and cannot hear. So these aren't the only
I do mean
people that are
properties
following this
currently
today.
In Watertown right now, of all your properties, yes.
Okay, and I can check that with the manager to see.
Because, I mean, that would be a concern of mine if you, and I don't know, what do you mean when you say what's the difference between affordable housing and government-assisted housing? Either way, it's taxpayer dollars helping pay the rent, correct?
It is.
So it's the same. It is. I mean, it's taxpayer dollars coming from somebody that's working, paying taxes, is contributing to the rent that these buildings are going to be renting people to, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Yep.
I have a question for.
I just don't like
Okay.
the wording of the terminology to make it sound like it's something that it's really not. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not. I applaud all the low-income housing that we have in town. There's definitely a need for low-income housing. We all know what some of the jobs pay. You don't make a lot of money in most of the jobs in town. And so they need to have a place to live. But my concern with it, and again, I don't get the vote, I'm not on the commission for this, but if you got a bunch of $300,000 and $400,000 houses, 200, whatever they are, single-family homes, I would be concerned what that's gonna do to my neighborhood. And you can have all the best managers in the world, but you can't control your renters.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
And I can go through the difference between subsidized and affordable and how it is. I mean, these people pay rent. In subsidized projects, they don't have to pay rent. Their rent could be $0 or $25 or $50. Here, there's a minimum rent. If you make so much income, you have to pay, it's $393. If you're qualified for the 60%, your minimum rent is gonna be up to that $1,017. I mean, it's gonna be that rent that we set. So it's not gonna be, they're not gonna pay $50.
No, I
And that's the difference.
understand that,
Yeah,
but
so
but
just to
I mean,
clarify.
but I mean, it's
To
still,
clarify.
whether
Yep.
it's $5 being contributed to their rent or
Mhm.
$500 contributed to the rent, it's still taxpayer dollars that's
It
going
is,
to their
yes,
rent.
correct. Yep, yep.
Okay.
So-
Okay, question?
Yeah, Joan, I have a
Yes.
question for you.
Yes, sir.
Looking at your plans and the photographs of the existing properties you have, that all looks very nice. I guess my question to you would be, considering Watertown's planning is typically R1, buffer R2, R3, and what you're proposing or requesting is going from R1 to R3, my question to you would be, what is the compelling reason why there should be an exception to zoning this as R3?
Well, and it was master plan for commercial, so we're asking for really a down zone to R3. I mean, this was master plan for commercial. That's when we came in and looked at the parcel, the owner said, this is commercial property, we can down zone it to R3. So again, there wouldn't have been a buffer between R1 to commercial, and then there was R3 just directly east.
And And immediately adjacent to the property, to the east is already zoned R3, so it is
Yeah.
contiguous with, R3 that is currently in the city limits.
Joan, did you say that it wouldn't have students for Lake area involved? It would not?
Students have to qualify under a 10-point item. And there are certain exceptions, but 2 full-time students will not be living together. I mean, we don't, it's a federal rule for us according to the financing that we put in the project.
But there could be one with 2 or
One-
3 children? and
Yes, yes.
So you could
yes.
multiply the potentials issues and.
But again, our 1-bedrooms, I didn't go through that for the number of 1-bedrooms, 2 and 3, and we added those, the 8 units, the 2 8-unit townhome buildings. Sorry, let me grab my sheet here. I believe there's 18 ones, 22, or 22s, and then it would be, I believe, 16 threes is how this works out, so. But typically, again, that 2-bedroom unit, and a single person can live in the 2-bedroom unit as well. Any other questions for me? Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience?
I just wanted to address, when Carrie had asked what we thought it was going to be when we moved in, we were told that it was more than likely going to be zoned R2. It wasn't zoned at the time. It might have been in the master plan, but it still needs to be annexed in. And you have to consider your public when you're annexing it.
Were you told that by the owner?
The person, no, the person that we bought ours from. We didn't
Oh, you
buy
bought it.
directly from the owner. We bought from using a different realtor.
Okay.
But we were told that it would more than likely be a max of 4 units, possibly 3 to 4 4-unit.
Similar to what's a little bit east of there?
Yeah, like a
That's
twin,
what you
like a
assumed?
townhome.
Okay, okay.
And that could also be a condo, not necessarily a 4-rent unit.
Okay. Next. Hi, Nancy.
Nancy York, former representative of Ward A, and I still feel kind of protective to this area and these folks after representing them for 17 years. And I was on the council when this whole development first came into being. And it was planned out very carefully. It's followed through exactly the way it's supposed to be. Wonderful, wonderful development up there, very expensive homes, very nice homes, people that take an interest in taking care of their homes. And I think Leanne brought out part of the best reason. They are saturated with multi-family dwelling up there. As I look at these apartments that Costello's is thinking about building, beautiful. They would be a wonderful addition to some places in town that are very depressed, and neighborhoods would love to see them come in. And not necessarily by railroad tracks and not necessarily in an industrial park. There's neighborhoods that would love to be cleaned up and have an apartment like this in it. So I'm just speaking in favor of these folks. Part of your duties is to protect the property values that these people have invested in their homes. And I think that she's very correct. This would affect their property values in a negative way. So just keep those things in mind.
Thank you.
I wanted to
Go-
just mention
come
one
on
more
back up.
thing here. Again, I'm in this house right here, 1279 Cherry Drive. Mark, you mentioned, and I guess it's probably zoning 101, when you coordinate a nice transition in zoning R1 buffer, R2 buffer, R3. I get that. My back property line right here, R1, R3, roughly 100 feet in between, with a drainage ditch right now that doesn't drain and no buffer. Is that good planning? I guess you have to answer that question yourself. But if that is the optimum way to transition in zoning, R1 buffer, R2 buffer, R3, this certainly doesn't pass that test at all. And again, I'm not anti-development. You know, I want Watertown to grow. I pay taxes here. I work here. I'm proud to live in the community. It's just you try and shoehorn a project into an existing neighborhood when all of these houses to the west, no buffer, and especially for Sean and Jessica, myself and my wife, for Troy and Leanne. I mean, we basically have spent our life savings buying these houses. They're not inexpensive houses. Our taxes are not inexpensive. And this is where we want to set down roots. When we do it, we know that this land is going to be developed, but we don't expect R3 to be 150 feet from our property line with no buffer in between. Had we known that in advance, we would have never purchased the property to begin with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of you that haven't spoken yet.
I'm Billy DeVries. I actually live in this lot right here. It's vacant on that map. But my question is traffic flow. As we said, this is a half road here. You have now 100 additional cars coming into this property. How are they going to be able to handle the traffic here, all around here? These are where our kids ride bikes, our kids play. You've now 100 additional vehicles coming in. Plus you have their kids running around, riding bikes and all that. How are we going to handle that?
Well, 14th Street and 19th Street are the two major collector streets that are designated for that portion of the city. So they will ultimately be built out to the correct standards that would accommodate the traffic that constitutes a major arterial or collector. And so as that need and demand reaches further east, we as a city will be designing those streets accordingly. And whether or not this complex is the actual trigger for building that street out, it may very well be, or it may be, you know, in another year or two when the next subdivision to the east is developed. So we will monitor that, and 14th Street is planned to be a collector within the eastern portion of the town.
Right now, during the winter, this road is always snowed in, constantly. I have to go over the long way around to get to work because I can't take that road, okay? And there is no blocking from the snow right here from this vacant field. Now you've got 100 extra people driving on this road, constantly one that's not maintained currently.
Right, I understand that, but, you know, as the area builds out, the street will be improved accordingly. I mean, that's just the way it is. Development will push the street development.
So you said it probably will be a couple years before it's developed, right? So my son riding his bike has to deal with 100 extra people coming to and from home for the next 2 years potentially.
You got an 8-foot trail up there.
Yeah,
for
there's
him
a
to ride
bike
the
trail
on.
that he has access to, for one thing, but
Okay,
I'm
how do I
just saying.
access this bike trail when I live over here? I have to go all the way around. Hey, the drainage problem.
Right. Well, I can say that, you know, the city will systematically build the infrastructure to reach the demand as it improves. So this subdivision's what, less than 5 years old, typically? Well, 10, okay, so.
Well,
but-
and we're speculating what's going to happen
Right,
and how
right.
fast it's going to
So-
build. Let's try to get back
Yeah,
focused on the issue of
that's true.
annexation and
But there is a
zoning.
plan to improve the streets accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Aren't you glad you came to Watertown, your first meeting?
Hi, my name's Greg Otis. I live over on 27th Street, and so I currently have the buffers between the new buildings and the apartments that are already currently there. That isn't zoned right now, right? It's still considered county?
It's not zoned, it's ag.
So-
The only thing we said, in the master plan, it was planned to be commercial.
So you'd have to
But
have
that
your
was never
buffer-
presented.
Your buffer in there, right, before they could have
If-
zone 3. If they continued zone 3.
If that plan came to us today, to me today, I would like to see from R1 to R2, R3 commercial.
Correct, so there's no
Yep.
room for R2 behind the houses that these guys are talking about. And then, if they put them in there, and there will be a water issue, but if you bring it into the city, wouldn't it be better to do R1, like the mayor said, with better grasses and trees, instead of concrete and buildings?
On that property.
Yeah, because you already know it's
Well,
gonna
that's,
be in there.
yeah, and that's not our decision, we're not the developer, we're just here to,
Right, but I mean,
to hear the
if you already know that
art.
there's a problem, you know, instead of compiling it, try and do something for it. If it's gonna be developed, do it as R1 or R2.
Yeah, we've got those two issues. We've got the drainage and then the type of building that goes in with, which comes from the zoning. As far as the area, the city has a plan for that, and that will get taken care of. We've been assured by that by the engineering office and by the mayor. But I would like to just comment too that, call it what you want to, but it's a wetland, it's a slough.
Right.
When that was a field, that's a slough.
But if you have concrete and building there, you're
And
already
it
gonna
held,
drain into that.
and it held water. It didn't drain, it held water just like it does today. My daughter lives in Sioux Falls and south in Louise and east a little bit, and in the back of their yard is a big wetland with cattails and everything else. And those are all over that area because those were nothing but sloughs at one time, but they've had to been maintained to hold water. Now, that's what that was. Now, the city's gonna try to drain it, get it out of there, but in all reality, it was a slough.
Right. No, I understand that, but I'm just saying if you bring it in, you might as well bring it in as R1 so you have more grass, more trees to help with the situation that you have. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Well, that's not our decision to do that, but it's a good point you're making, yeah.
You're not the one to pick it if it
No,
goes into R2,
all we
R1,
can act on today is what the request is.
or if you're gonna annex it.
We can annex it in, which
And
just
you can
brings
bring
it
it in
into the
as
city,
R1?
but nothing can be done with it. The request
It's
is to
three
bring it in
different
as R3. So we have to either vote yea or nay on R3.
Oh, so you
And if
don't-
they
you don't
want to make
decide
it
which way
R1
it's
or
gonna be
R2,
zoned.
they can bring that back to us then at that point. Let's say the R3 gets voted down today, they can come back with an R1 or an R2 request. It can still be brought into the city today.
Okay.
Am I correct? Correct. Just clarify that.
Yeah, and if the plan commission rejects the R3 application and doesn't vote to rezone the property, they vote, let's presume they vote to annex it, but they don't approve the zoning designation, that can still go forward to the city council with no affirmative recommendation from this body, the plan commission. So it can go forward to the plan commission when the city council is gonna be told, hey, the plan commission was asked to rezone this R3, they said no, but the applicant, if they're inclined, can still ask to bring it forward to the city council and say, hey, we'd like you to take another look at what the plan commission decided, and we'd like you to vote your own way. So the plan commission is simply a recommending body to the city council. So that's the way it works.
Anything that we approved has to be approved by them.
Dennis,
But yes,
I was gonna wait till we actually closed the public hearing and then got to the discussion to make this comment, but I felt that he kind of led into this. I appreciate the public hearing process and really am glad that all of you came to express your views on this issue. But I did want to point out that when the city staff makes their recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Board, it's based purely on the criteria that we need to evaluate to make our recommendations. So when we say that our staff recommends that this be approved for annexation and approved for R3 and all the development pieces, it's because this proposed development generally meets the conditions that we need to review. So we have to put our blinders on to what the proposed housing is. I mean, we can't determine, looking at this part of the process, whether or not that's low-income housing or $1 million mansions going in there. Because really, let's be honest, if somebody that had an obscene amount of money went in there, they could put in a facility that would be so gaudy that you'd all hate that as well. I mean, and concrete it out to the limits. So as part of our process, we have to put our values in what the ordinances and the process says, and not take into consideration the type of money that's going to be, or people that are living there. So this process is a two-step thing, and that's not something that's on our criteria to look at. So I just want you to understand that from a staff standpoint, we can't make our recommendations based on whether that's low-income housing or the highest income housing in town. Okay, I just want that to be clear, because I don't want the punching bags to come out later and say that the city didn't do due process on this issue, okay?
So you're saying that you guys don't know what it'll be, if it'll be R1, R3? Well, then you
We
might as well
can,
just-
we can
might
make
as well
that
just leave it
determination,
county.
But whether we
The-
annex it in, that's not part of this decision.
We do not make that decision. The applicant that brings it forward makes the request the way they want to present it to us, and that's what we have to act on is their request. We don't tell the owner or the developer it has to be R1, R2, R3, or commercial. They say that to us, and then we have to act on whatever their request is.
That's correct.
we-
And I
we
just wanted
can't go
everybody
to-
to be clear on that.
Yeah, we
It's
can't
being
go back
requested
today and say, we
R3.
won't approve it as R3, we want you to make it R1. That's, yeah, we don't own the land, we can't do that. We can only act on what their request is. Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, more or
Yeah.
less.
Yep, and
Yeah.
I wanted everybody to be clear on that too. We're acting on what was brought to us as a staff and the board.
So as it is
Okay.
right now, it probably soaks up more groundwater than if it was concrete then. Being county. If you left it
The-
county, it would take up more water and potentially could better grass, better trees to keep the water issue down already.
Well, that's an engineering question, but, yep. Okay, anything new that hasn't been brought up yet that we need to cover? Yes.
Hi, Jamie Stricker. Just question, you guys keep saying it was thought to be maybe commercial. What is the ruling? Because you said the 3.5 acres is more than sufficient for R3. Is that sufficient for commercial? Is there a minimum square footage? So it is-
Yes, it is, yep. Go ahead and answer that,
The
Jeff.
last preliminary plan was done in 2006, and that preliminary plan showed this piece of ground being split up into 4 lots. Each one of those lots met the area requirements for to being zoned C2 local commercial. So, yep, they did.
So
But
is
to be-
local commercial, is that Casey's, is that Cowboy?
I'll read them off for you here.
I believe Stanton is looking up.
It could
Would
be
you like to-
neighborhood retail, automobile
Kenny?
parking lot, bank or financial institution, service establishments, public utilities, or office buildings. Now, those are permitted uses, they can come into me, and I have no reason to say no to any of them. Then as conditional uses, they can come back and basically conditional use is an approved use, but they can put conditions on it. Car wash, service station, hotel, motel, bar, tavern, casino, restaurant, daycare facility, assisted living center, clinic, storage units, funerary services, or other uses in the opinion of the board meet the general character of the neighborhood.
General character of the neighborhood. I think that is the key word. Right, I'm
That's just an option.
When we purchased our land 12, 13 years ago now, we were told that it might be like a Cedar View nursing home or something small on that end. So we did come in thinking that there would be something there, but something small that's not going to have all the traffic. I think my neighbor hit it on the head when it's the infrastructure of our area. Our roads, we can't handle all these extra cars, extra people. 14th blowing in the winter. Where do we push all that extra snow? It's just a combination of things. So I know you guys can't do R1 or R2, but I think that it needs to be no to the R3 because it does not fit in our plan with that buffered, the R1 to R2 to R3. It just does not fit in that. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else before I close the public hearing that has something new they'd like to say? Okay, I think with, what?
Can I?
Yep. Stanton?
The only comment that I'd like to make for the audience is that in the event the applicant, and it's entirely their decision if they want to do this, if they want to pursue the city council's decision on this matter, let's assume it's denied today for the annexation, the rezoning, that's not approved today, they could decide that they still want to go forward to the city council and have them review the application. Under our code, if it's denied today at the plan commission, then they'll need a 2/3 vote of the city council to approve the annexation and rezoning. So under our code, if this body today says nope, and they still want to pursue city council approval, if they move forward, they're going to need 2/3. So that's out of 10 council members, they're going to need a 2/3 vote to to have an affirmative annexation, rezoning and that. So just so you folks are aware, the applicant, it's entirely their decision whether they would want to move forward after today if they're denied. If they do, they'll need a 2/3 vote to be approved at the city council. So everyone's aware.
Okay, then let's close the public hearing, which I already asked for. Can I have a motion? We're going to address this in 3 separate motions. One's going to be in the annexation, one will be in the zoning, and one will be in the plating. So let's start with annexation. Could I have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to annex the property.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Stonebarger.
Second.
Okay, and we have a second. Any discussion on the annexing, bringing this property into the city, annexing it in by the board? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so it's a motion passed. So the property has been approved to be annexed into the city. Now let's look at the zoning. Do I have a motion to approve to zone this property R3 as it's brought into the city?
I'll make a motion for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion for discussion. Have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, discussion.
The master plans are good for 3 years. This was master plan in 2006, so the master plan is run out. So whether it's commercial or R3, whatever, that's out the window. I believe there's R1 to the south, there's R1 to the west, and there's R1 to the southeast. And I believe it should be more properly zoned R2 rather than R3. But I can't make that motion, so I will probably be voting no on the R3.
I agree with
Okay.
you, and considering the ag land there, I don't count that as a buffer from this standpoint. It's open land, and it's not the buffer that we typically have in this scenario.
Okay.
Yeah, and what it could have been brought in 3 years ago, I don't think is relevant today. And I also don't feel comfortable with the buffer. The fact that there is R3 to the east of that property, I think is too much of a disconnect relative to the homeowners on the, that spoke here today. That's a different part of the property, far enough away from those homes that I don't think that should be used as an exception, that because that's R3, then, that this property should be brought in as R3 as well. As I don't think I'll be voting in favor of it.
Okay. Guess I'm the only one that hasn't spoken. No, I would concur with what each of the rest of you has said. I do believe that in a master plan, you need to have that buffer from R1 to the R3s. Even though there is green space between the two, with the drain tile, the vegetation will be down. You're probably not going to see a lot of any kind of buffer other than grassy area. The master plan is quite old. I'm not sure why it was thought and planned that way originally, but I think now we have a developed neighborhood. We have an established neighborhood. We have houses, all the way pretty much around the west and the south and somewhat on the east. So I think at this point I'd have to vote against it too.
I would like to make one other comment. I do like the concept. And
I do.
your
I like the
plan,
concept. Watertown
and I would
needs
like
that.
you to find a place that we have existing R3 that something like that could be built, because I think Watertown could use it.
I want to state this, and I thank you for saying that, John. I'm glad you're looking at Watertown, and I don't want you to get discouraged at us because we won't let you do this in this particular site, because we do need it in Watertown. It's just that at this particular place probably isn't the spot for it. Maybe 10 years ago it would have been, and then when people would have bought those lots, they would have known that that's in their backyard, but today it might be a little late, so.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's absolutely the kind of apartment building that we want to see throughout town, just not necessarily in this location.
Okay, let's call a vote. All in favor of the motion, bringing this in with the zoning of R3, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion failed. Okay, we'll move on to the third aspect of it, plating.
I think in light of that, the last vote, Mr. Chairman, I think that probably the applicant is not gonna wanna see the property platted, because if it is gonna be an R1 or an R2, they're gonna probably have different lot sizes. I'll defer to Rod, the applicant, but maybe you want it platted as a single lot, I don't know, but I do think we ought to ask him whether he wants to have the property platted. No. Okay, so.
Okay, we'll pass on that
Okay.
one and we'll withdraw that one. Okay, I think at that point, we will ask for a motion to adjourn the Planning Commission meeting.
So moved. Second.
Second, we'll recess it, not adjourn it, we'll recess it. We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, now we'll go back to, thank you for coming, folks. We'll let you go home. Okay, I'd like to call the July 23rd Board of Adjustment meeting to order. If I could have the roll call.
Stein?
Here.
Stoneberger?
Here.
Arnold?
Here.
Dolly?
Here.
Albertson? Johnson? Here. McGuire is absent, Rhonda Johnson is absent, and Pat Driver is absent. We have a quorum.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Number 2 on the agenda.
Application for building permit number 16220. Owner applicant is Dayton and Patricia Dunn of 1526 Parkview Drive. Applicant was submitted requesting to reconstruct a non-conforming 572 square foot, 22 by 26 foot unattached garage on a 15,976 plus square foot parcel. Said structure proposed to be constructed on existing pad and foundation, 15 foot from the rear north property line where a minimum of 20 is required, 4 foot from the side west property line where a minimum of 9 is required. Basically what this is he has a garage here in this existing structure that you can see right there. I don't know about that. You can see it with this right here. According to our records, it was built in 1908. It is deteriorating and falling apart, and he's just wanting to rebuild the same building back on the same place. He doesn't want to pour new concrete and driveway and everything else. Personally, I support the issue, but that's.
Okay.
Ken, I have a question.
Certainly.
There's 15 foot from the garage to the property line, but that driveway is a lot longer than 15 feet, right?
Oh, yeah, he's got a driveway that goes clear out to 37 feet approximately.
Right. He just wants to tear the structure down, build a new one right in the same place.
Exact same place, use the same foundation, everything, it's just falling apart.
And if he wanted to leave one wall stand, he could do it without him bringing it to us.
No, but if
But
I
he's
go
better
out-
off to tear
if
it
I
down
go
and
out
start over.
say it's, I can condemn it and he can rebuild it where he wants. But I didn't
Yeah.
want to take that route.
Right, okay.
The
Yeah.
engineering would like to weigh in on this a little
Okay.
bit.
Any, just have a motion?
Just a second, I have a comment. There's a
Okay.
a bike trail planned for in front of that property.
I thought they moved
All
that.
right.
I was just informed that that's, but, isn't it? Okay, all right.
The revised plan shows it going across here. There is an easement across this property. And the last I heard that it's proposed to move up there. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen that, but I think that's the case.
But a setback is what, typically 20 feet?
For detached garage accessory structure, be correct.
Right, so that would almost barely make a parking space between the bike trail and the garage if it did go forward.
I think that's all.
Where would you be putting the bike trail?
Well,
In the
just
back.
off of the property line, of course, to the city side, but
Adjacent to the property line or adjacent to the road?
adjacent to the property line.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's the request. Let's have a motion for, so we get some discussion here. Public hearing. Open up the public hearing on this. Are the applicants here or anyone to speak on their behalf or?
He is here if you wish to ask a question. Was contacted by one adjacent neighbor to the east, and he supports the request.
Supports the request?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then with no other input, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
motion made and seconded. Any discussion by the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Number 3. We're sorry you had to wait so long for that. Thanks for listening.
Item number 3, application and on appeal. An appeal of the zoning ordinance requirements application for building permit number 16222. Owner applicant is Esco Manufacturing Incorporated. Address is 2020 4th Avenue Southwest.
You skipped one.
Number 3?
I'm sorry, that was withdrawn.
Oh, number 3.
Oh, that was withdrawn?
Oh,
I'm sure that breaks your heart.
Okay. When was that withdrawn? Just today?
It was withdrawn on the 20th. I'm sorry.
Okay, because we were still taking calls, or at least I was taking calls on that today yet, so nobody knew that.
I'm sorry, what?
I was still taking calls on that one today, so, but I guess nobody knew it had been
Well, the
withdrawn.
adjacent
so.
landowners were all notified that it was withdrawn. I'm surprised they called you.
Well, might not have been adjacent landowner.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying it's adjacent.
So I have a procedural question.
I do
Okay,
assume
we-
some
we have
portion
a-
of I'm still assuming some portion of that will come back at some future date with a minor revision or something.
Okay, point of clarification.
Mark, does he physically have to, we have to adjourn and he has to leave and then because he is a conflict of interest on this? But if he sits here and abstains, is it no and all that kind of stuff?
I thought.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, what we've done in the past is you just state why you're gonna abstain from the vote. But
But
you
does
can
that-
still be a part of the discussion.
But does that vote count as a
correct?
no vote if he abstains?
No, I would say that Mark, given his position, would recuse himself from voting on the issue. If he wants to speak in favor or against the issue, he could, but I think it needs to be clear that he's going to recuse himself from the vote.
Okay, so that doesn't.
And we still have 5 voting members, so we still have a quorum
Okay.
for it.
Just making sure.
But he does have the option of withdrawing based on there's only 5 people here. It's up to him.
No, we'll go ahead. But I will be recusing myself from this item.
Okay, number 4.
To continue on, application was submitted requesting to enlarge an existing non-conforming industrial facility by constructing a non-conforming office addition. Said structure proposed to be constructed 45.9 feet from the front north property line, where a minimum of 75-foot setback is required. 16.05 feet from the side east property line, where a minimum of 50-foot setback is required. And if you got this thing, there's a lot of history. This has been before the Board of Adjustment many times. This is a legally non-conforming building. Every time it has been built, it was granted by Board of Adjustment position. Again, applicant proposes to enlarge an existing legal non-conforming facility, a legally non-conforming facility, located in the I-2 Heavy Industrial District by constructing a 5,000 square foot, 2-story offices addition, a 50 by 50 footprint, 2,500 square feet per floor with a 12 by 24 canopy roofed entry. And we have received no comments from anybody adjacent, pro or con.
I'd like to ask a question, maybe of you, Mark. You want to just explain, clarify? I mean, I know Ken did, but just talk about it a little bit.
Yep, actually,
okay.
Our representative here with all of our documentation is Kevin Morris. I'll let him
Okay.
introduce himself. But certainly, if there's any
Let's open up the public hearing and do that then.
Good evening. So we're looking at adding on to the northeast corner for additional office spacing. We're seeing a continued growth each and every year in our manufacturing on the production floor. And I've been with the company 21 years, and we have a huge island in about 3/4 of the way down from the west that projects inside into our production area that houses our office administration. They do the accounting, paperwork, and then which consumes about 3,300 square feet of valuable production space that we have not been able to utilize. And conversely, down here on the northeast corner, above one of our production areas, we have our office staff, sales staff. And there's a huge disconnect that has been going on for many years, trying to effectively get the two areas efficient, because paperwork has to be not even on there. Essentially, we have to walk about 300 feet from the west office, as we call, down to the sales office with paperwork, change orders and stuff for the production floor. So what we're trying to do is open up additional production space so we can bring in additional jobs, satisfy our customers that are continuing to grow. We're trying to grow with them and create capacity. And likewise, bring all our office staff into one central location to minimize the amount of downtime and the disconnect we have today. and so forth. So the area we're looking at getting rid of is right here. We're looking at eliminating that. That's about 3,300 square feet, and then relocating them down here, down to the northeast corner.
And that would be your offices and
And our main entrance.
administration and main
I do
entrance.
have some conceptual drawings on a thumb drive. We're trying not to make it look like an industrial office just plopped out there. We're trying to do some stone, some pillars to make it very attractive and so forth. And before we even applied, I went over and visited with Bill Towell about the concept and what we're looking at doing, and he was all in favor for it. Our major
Okay.
neighbor to the east.
So, Ken, the reason that they're bringing this to us, restate, is because of the east property line and also in the north?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, anybody from the audience would like to question, speak on the behalf, either before or against?
I would
Okay.
point out that this aerial view gives you a good bird's eye view of the offices as they extend to the north. Will be in line with the existing buildings that are there. For example, the Watertown Box buildings to the east of that. It would be actually aligned with that as you're driving down the street. It would actually line up with the other buildings.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to share with the staff kind of a conceptual rendering of what we're looking at, and we can kind of
Sure,
show
sure.
where, and the aerial view is also important too. We have additional parking spaces. We can easily satisfy additional staff and so forth, so on the south and the north.
One thing I would also point out is even before we decided to build out to the north, knowing that we would need a variance, we did approach the Watertown Box ownership and asked them about purchasing additional land so we could go to the east rather than the north, and they wanted to retain their property there, so that kind of limited our options as far as where we could go.
Okay. Any other
How many
comments?
times have you added on, Mark? How many times have you added on to your company?
Once to the west and twice to the east.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's made a nice corner there, so.
And I know over the years that's been a concern where your offices are
Right,
for a
right,
long
exactly.
time.
And we've tried to keep the place looking nice. You know, we did
Yeah.
some landscaping out on the corner a few years ago, and I know that the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustments is big on trees and stuff, so no trees will be harmed in the construction of this project. Well, then, the Stonebriar was giving me a bad time about that, but there's nowhere where to put trees without choking out some of the other ones.
Now, if you bring the picture up
Okay.
there's 3 trees on 4th Avenue.
Those are
And
big. Those are big.
Those are big
ones.
trees, but there's no trees farther east.
Also, there-
And there's room for at least another 3 trees there a little farther east.
I think you're talking about these 3 trees here that we essentially replanted once we added on and saved them. And we're intentionally setting it in 16 feet from the corner building so we can save those trees and so forth. So,
Okay.
this is-
I'm referring to the trees on 4th Avenue. If you'd bring up this drawing?
yeah, those are still there.
Yeah, and so if you go a little farther east, you've got a little boulevard there, you could put in about another 3 trees to be more in compliance with the requirements for
Well,
trees.
the only thing there, the thing there is, after we get this built, there is a concern about the ingress and egress. We may have to actually change the driveway entrance, which would be actually where you're talking about where those trees would go. What I'm saying is that
So you're gonna close this and put on here?
perhaps.
Okay,
Put it
John,
there where you close it.
if you want trees, you can put that in the motion.
Okay.
See if it'll pass.
But here is a
Okay,
west
let's
facing
keep moving here.
entryway of the sales or the office space right here.
All right, any more input from the public? Okay, have a motion by the board?
I want to make the motion right away then before John gets a chance. I'll make a motion to approve this.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I did have a question on boulevard improvements over on the west side on 21st there. That doesn't have all the urban infrastructure improvements. It's more of a rural cross-section on that road. What is the process then? Is the city responsible for at some point improving that and bringing it up to the city standards? Is it the property owner?
I think because the trail.
Go ahead.
I would defer to the engineers, but I think because there's a trail network across the street on what would be the northwest corner there, that's where the bike trail, the trail is there. I don't know that there would be plans, and I don't think there's plans for a sidewalk or trail network along the ESCO property.
There already is one across the north side of it.
There's a trail on
On the
Fourth
north-
Avenue, but
on
on
north side of
21st
it.
Street,
Yeah,
Really just right here right now.
I misspoke, Ken. I meant on 21st Street. I think the trail network is adjacent to the ESCO property on the north, and then it's across the street by the airport. So I don't think there's an intention to put trail. No.
Yeah, and as far as like curb
Okay.
and gutter, is that more of a, as the development grows and warrants that improvement, is that when it's looked at? I know 19th is being looked at right now, and it's a similar
I'm not
situation.
familiar
Well-
with the area, obviously, but typically, if both sides of the road aren't developed, then that kind of lags the development of the upgrading of standard city roads. So, but ultimately, if all these developments and stuff create more traffic, the road will definitely be improved to handle whatever traffic is seen in the area. So I don't know that it's on a short list at this time.
Okay, any more discussion or questions of the board?
I
Okay.
understand your motion and your second, and I would still rather see 3 more trees on Fourth, but it's not a deal breaker, I guess.
Want to make an amendment?
You want to have a recommendation for 3 trees?
I would recommend 3 trees on Fourth Avenue, somewhere on the boulevard.
Okay.
We do have
that's not-
ordinances, and we do have requirements for trees and sidewalks and all this. You got a bike trail on there, which to me satisfies the sidewalk, but it's up to you.
Okay. At this point, that's just made as a recommendation.
Correct.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. With the recommendation of 3 boulevard trees on 14th,
Once we figure out
on
where
4th
that is
Avenue.
gonna be, we'll do something with your trees.
Okay, number 5, applicant Sandy Stodham, request conditional use.
I drive by Watertown Box, and these kiddies, they got no trees.
Application number 16223, conditional use request. Owner applicant Sandra Stodham. Address is 308 and 312 Fifth Street Southeast. Applicant seeks approval for modification of a site plan for previously approved conditional use, future known as a specialist, or past known as a special exception, to allow for the expansion of a retail establishment located in the R2 Single Family Attached Residential District. Per 21-1804, 21-1603, and contingent upon compliance with Board of Adjustment powers and duties, specific rules governing, and any applicable ordinance or other regulations. You can see the history of this thing, various conditions have gone through this stuff. The owner now, in May, the staff report finds that in May, the staff advised the property owner to secure required permits for property improvements being initiated without a permit at 308 Fifth Street Southeast, at which time it was discovered the property owner, Sandra Stodham, seeks to convert the residential use, single-family dwelling into a commercial retail use accessory to her adjacent approved business use House of Dreams retail establishment, to be operated as one merged retail establishment facility. Prior to further consideration, the Board of Adjustment must decide if they indeed have the authority to consider approval of the application pursuant to 210202. By definition, a retail establishment as defined by ordinance is neither a listed permitted nor conditional use in the R2A district. However, it is in the C1, C3, and business park districts. Neighborhood retail establishments as defined by ordinance is a listed permitted or conditional use in the R2, R2A, R3, and C3. By definition, neighborhood retail establishment generally recognize retail businesses which supplies commodities on the premises for persons residing in adjacent residential areas, such as but not limited to groceries, meat, dairy products, baked goods, and other foods, drugs, dry goods, clothing, and notions or hardware. A retail establishment is an establishment engaged in selling products, goods, or merchandise to the general public for personal or household consumption, and establishments engaged in providing services or entertainment to the general public, including convenience stores, petroleum sales, repair shops, indoor amusement, copy services, health professional, educational and social services, and other miscellaneous services. So I don't know if we kind of want to take this in a two-step program or not. Stanton, I look for you to have a little bit here. Or are we just going to assume that this is what it is, or what? The thing is the use that's described is not a described use in the R2A district. So you have to make the jump as within the district is a neighborhood retail establishment. You know, if you think that this follows into the guidelines of a neighborhood retail establishment, then it is a conditional use of that district.
Is there a retail establishment being operated out of that facility today?
Yes, absolutely, which was granted, as you can see by the history back in 1992.
Okay.
In reading those notes, it was presumed that that is a highway commercial district almost through there, even though, I mean, it's mostly residential, but there is some of them. I think they made the assumption at that time that that would eventually be turned into a highway commercial district, which never developed, so.
Ken, in the development of 81, will that turn into a commercial area? Do you think? I mean, just a presumption, just one way or the other, do you think?
I mean, you're gonna have to have the continued growth of other retail establishments along that area, so that means those residential people would have to leave, and you'd have to get more commercial development along there. I don't know that any of our plans or there anything else that
I'm
we've
thinking
had.
because it's on either side of that street, you know,
Yeah,
on the block to the south, the block to the north.
Does anybody
already.
know if the comprehensive land use plan ever thought that that would maybe develop into commercial along there or not? I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, let's open a public hearing then in regard to that, and do we have anyone here to, is the applicant here?
Yes, the applicant is here.
Okay.
I just want to
Anybody?
point out on the
Go ahead, Jeff.
Comprehensive land use plan, it has it as developed areas. Our comprehensive land use plan, our previous one was looking at how the outside of city limits was going to be brought in and developed, but our current plan shows it as developed areas. So
Ken, if you could advise the board about the notice requirements and the green cards.
Yeah, absolutely. Public notice did go out, and it was done, and actually, we had a lot of calls, but nobody really specifically, I mean, I had one specifically, the neighbor to the north was definitely against the proposition, and I heard rumors that maybe some of the others were. So I was hoping if there is other people here in opposition to it, that they arrived and are here in person. Other than the one, that's the only one I can state matter of factly is definitely against it, is the property to the north.
Okay, so at one point, at this point, you've had one response against it negatively. Is there anyone in the audience? We've opened a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of this? Okay.
And I hope you don't mind, but I'm gonna read this because I don't publicly speak.
Yeah, just state your name first.
My name is Teresa Lanning. My husband Larry and I live at 306 5th Street Southeast, right next to the property we are discussing today.
That is on the south?
North.
North, okay, okay.
We purchased our home 5 years ago. First, can you put that in?
Not saying I can bring it up, but. Just working on it, hasn't come up yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue on. The first point I would like to bring up is the fact that our neighborhood is zoned an R2A, which is a multifamily dwelling, and are allowed. When I purchased my home, I understood to be a resident in a neighborhood. I did not sign up to be in a business district.
Next item I would like to bring up is the alley. It is not a paved road. Here we go. This is our alley. Oh, you don't have to, that's fine. It's not a paved road, nor is it wide enough to get in 2 cars through at the same time, so increased traffic in the area would not benefit anyone, especially with dust and danger to children who ride their bikes in the alley, as well as for an additional business. More parking would be needed, and also there's no loading dock. So delivery trucks that come into the alley have to either stay in the middle of the alley or hope that her parking is already open. The next thing is the garbage issue. There is no dumpster, so the garbage is left out overnight in boxes. So if we happen to get a strong wind or a storm, garbage potentially can go everywhere. The next point is the lack of privacy between 2 properties. This is the original fence that was up there before she bought the property. After she bought the property, she had taken down the fence. The fence has been down for 2 months now. And she's had people in and out of this house. So therefore, my patio is right there. So I have no privacy. I have people going in next door, in and out of that house to shop and tour the building, whatever. The last thing is, in closing, this home did not have a business in it. It was not a commercial business. It was a home-based business. The actual owners lived in the home. So therefore, it didn't change the integrity of the neighborhood, whereas a commercial business does. And it increases the traffic and everything else by quite a bit. But I do want to thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If you just introduce yourself, state your name.
Sandy Statham.
Okay.
The garbage that she showed, did you see the fence between the 2 buildings? The garbage goes inside there. Jeff comes and picks it up and hauls it away, and it just hadn't gotten hauled and put inside the fence because he was coming to get it. So that's not usually how it is. I've done a lot to fix the neighborhood up, and I keep it tidy, and there isn't any of the other neighbors that were going to come and complain. They've all come over and encouraged me and thanked me for fixing the place up. I don't expect there to be any more traffic than there already is. I don't think my business is gonna exceed anything. There's only 1 till. They have to go through my store to get to the other side. I actually have more parking, and I don't get deliveries at my store because I don't have a loading dock. So my deliveries are brought out to Dakota Finishing, and then Jeff puts them in the back of his truck and brings them to me. So it is on a very rare occasion that I get a delivery made there because I don't want to pay the extra because I don't have a loading dock. So that's not an issue. And we do a lot to maintain. If there's extra snow, the neighbors put it on our lot. Jeff has come in with his blower to take and clean up the mess because everyone does park in the alley. So we've been very neighborly to people, including the people to the north. When they were shingling their house, they used a lift that we paid and rented and filled with gas. They use our parking in the evenings. So we have tried to be neighborly to everyone, knowing that nobody has parking in the evenings. I've been very accommodating to everybody. I've tried to be neighborly and do my best to be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Sandy, I have a question for you. What are, you've got, looks like on your original property there, you've got a like detached garage, and then you got 2 other buildings down there. What are those 2 other buildings?
That was storage because my old place had no basement, so I have been very limited, and that is, yeah, I have an extra lot, so that is a little clearance shed, and then the other 2 are my storage, and now there's another one because there's a fence in between for my garbage.
So in between those 2 buildings there, is that where you store your garbage?
No, where she showed the garbage, there was a fence.
Just move this and show it what it is.
Yeah, you can't see it really on there, I can't, but when she showed the picture, there was a fence between the two, and there's a fence at the back of it, and so in between those two is where I put all the garbage.
right
So
there.
nobody else has any, and that my other neighbors, I'm trying very hard to accommodate the neighborhood. And I've been there, like you said, since 1992. They've only been there 3 years, so they're 5. So there was already my business has been there a long time when they bought knowing that I was there operating a business. And I've fixed the neighborhood up a lot, I think, and spent a lot of time fixing up a rundown house that the plumbing was broken on because it's sat vacant for 6 years.
So you said there's only one till, so they're gonna be walking back and forth between the houses?
They
Is
have
that-
to go through me to get there. I put a little sidewalk, and then they have to come back.
So there's not an enclosed walkway, it's just a,
Well, there will be a fence eventually, but I've been doing a ton of work, so it's not
No,
like
no.
I'm not gonna, it's gonna be all fenced off. I just haven't had the time to do it. I haven't had the time yet to put the fence up, but of course, that's my next step. The fence is already purchased. It needs to be put together. and
when you're talking about a fence, where you're talking
Yeah,
about?
there's the sidewalk.
When
And
you,
so the back will be fenced in, the side will be fenced in, and
Why
the
don't
front
you-
will be fenced in.
Take that, push that down, kind of show us where you plan on putting the fence.
There will be a fence here, and there will be the fence here, and there will be a fence here.
how about on the south side? Is there any fence on the south side of your, Of
There's a
existing-
courtyard.
No, you-
They can't get out anywhere. You know, of course, I don't want them to be able to go into it and leave without coming back through me. It's larger things.
yeah, how
So
about on the south side of your existing business? Is there any
There's
fence
an,
along?
I own the empty lot.
There's, you own 320?
I
Or-
own that empty lot right here. This is
No, no,
another
on the,
lot.
okay, on the south side of that empty lot, is there a fence?
Here, I'll show you.
No,
He wants to know if there's a fence along this property line here.
no. But it'll be all fenced in, here and here, between them, and then
between
here.
those houses.
So they have to go through, they won't be able to see anything else. They'll have to
So
come back.
the fence that she was referring to that was there that came down is a fence that you took the old one down, you planned to put a new one up?
Because they, when they leveled their yard, they pushed all their dirt from their garage and their yard, and when they did it, when the house was vacant, and they forced the fence to be knocked over because they came up about this high, which I didn't realize until I took the fence down, that they had encroached on the property previously. I simply needed my concrete poured, so I poured the concrete, and I put a little curb to hold back the dirt that they had pushed. Not only did they encroach on the fence and broke it, but they also encroached on the side of the garage. So, and I'm just trying to get along,
Okay.
and of course I intend to put a fence back up.
Sandy, will that fence be similar to the one you showed us with the new fence? I'm kind of looking for a buffer, so Teresa's got her private,
Oh, yeah, it's,
it'll be,
It's gonna be better.
yeah.
it'll be
It's
what?
gonna be better.
And
Oh,
I probably
better.
wouldn't have had to
Okay,
tear
thank
the
you.
other one down had the dirt not been pushed against it when the house was vacant.
When they were, when.
Okay, if you'd like to talk, you need to come up to the microphone, but let's let this finish first.
When
Go-
the property was
Who are you,
empty.
ma'am?
I'm Marion Johnson, and I live across the alley from Sandy.
Oh, to the east.
Mhm.
Okay.
When the property was empty, when Rasmussen's moved out, there was a nice fence there, and there was a lean-to that was on their garage. Well, by the time that they got done fixing their home, all the dirt was over on the fence, and also, trees that they used for their fireplace, and the fence kept going like this, and the lean-to had stumps against it on the north side, and they used that for their fireplace, wood. So by the time that Sandy got a hold of it, it was wrecked. There was not a decent fence there, and the lean-to wasn't decent either. And
Okay,
also-
so you're all in favor
Of Sandy.
you're
Both-
supporting
yes. And
the
also,
request. Okay.
On the north side of her garage is a great big pile of stumps, pieces of tree, dirt that's just laying there, going down and running into her garage, and it's a mess.
The worst
Okay.
part is the
Well,
eave on the garage
It
cuts
sound-
down the garage.
It sounds like we're getting into other things here. It kind of sounds like we've got some neighborly issues here that you're trying to work out and work through.
Well, I can't use the garage because it floods. The eave off the garage is buried in the ground and is directed
But
right
we
at the
need,
garage.
okay, thank you. But what we need to act on today is your request of what you're wanting to do. And you've explained it very well, and they've expressed their opinion. So, anyone else? Okay, I think with that, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for discussion purposes with a caveat that the fences go up as she described them.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sternberg, second by Mr. Albertson. Discussion by the board.
I really wish we
Okay.
could spot zone C2 so we could, no, just listen to what I have to say, please. I wish we could spot zone C2 to make it a legal business. We can't do spot zoning. As an R2A, it's not really a legal building or business, but it has been there for years because a former board granted it. So I think our hands are kind of tied.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to me
Any other
that.
comments?
Yeah, well, it seems to me that I can appreciate what Lannings are saying. And I think as far as what we can do is put some conditions upon, the approval, such as the fence, so that at least try to get the properties back in the condition they were prior to, the fence coming down and all that. I don't know that, I don't know if there's a strong basis for us to deny, the continuation of that business, or not from the standpoint of any zoning basis for that. Again, for that uniqueness of how that is set up.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I did happen to enter into Sandy's business the other day by accident. I was doing Arrow Education Foundation begging and happened to be there and saw what's happening, and I think that area is immensely improved in terms of what she's doing, cleaning up the Rasmussen house, and I like the idea. I know that what you're saying is not a commercial area, but it has been since '92 then. Pardon me?
It was a home-based business
Yeah.
right next to us.
Yeah, I know, I've been there many times, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I think with that, we have a motion, we have a second, so all in favor of approving this request? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passed.
Would you just
Motion
verify
approved.
the condition though?
Well, that was in the motion,
That
but
they
clarify it
had
with the
a
fence.
as
Okay.
specified on the north and in between the two buildings and on the east in the new building.
Can I say something quick? The fence has already been purchased.
And the fence would be constructed and requested in accordance with the building application, building permit application, and be constructed when the rest of it's all done. So don't wait 2 or 3 years, just do it along like you're planning to finish it up now, and good.
It's the next step.
Okay, thank you, thank you. With that, we can bring this meeting to unless we have some other business, we'll bring this meeting to an end.
No new business, no table business.
Okay, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor? Okay, Board of Adjustment meeting is adjourned. Now we will open up the Planning Commission meeting for July 23rd and finish that agenda. We'll move right into that. We just recessed before, so we'll just call back to order, and we'll pick it up with the approval of the minutes of June 11th. Have a motion to approve?
Can we approve both minutes at the same motion?
We can.
I would like to do that.
Okay, just save time. Okay, motion to approve both the June 11th and June 18th. Second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, moving on to number 5, CAC First Edition replat. Jeff?
Okay, the petitioner is requesting that these 10 lots, which have already been platted and zoned R2, be replatted. They'll still be zoned R2. And the reason for the replatting is because he has a buyer that wants to buy a lot at a specific size. Currently, all of the lots meet and exceed the requirements in the R2 district, and after the platting, the replatting, they will still all meet and exceed the requirements in the R2 district. Normally, this type of plat would just be administratively approved as it's just a lot line adjustment, but according to ordinance, administrative plats can only occur if there's 5 or less lots, and since there's 10 lots that are being replatted, it's going through the process of going to you guys and then to council. But it was originally platted in June of 2008. That's 2 years.
So this
There
is
was an issue in there with it. Go ahead,
just
Dan.
kind of a bookkeeping issue,
Well,
maybe?
There's
Yep.
one lot that a potential buyer wants a certain size, so they're going to reduce the size of one lot to get it to that size, and then they're gonna take that extra area and add it to 3 lots, kind of spread it out, and then 6 of the lots will remain the exact same size that they currently are.
Was there an issue with a drainage easement that needed to be moved?
That wasn't part of the.
That's not part of this?
No, the drainage is still.
Because that,
on this.
no, not that one. But there was a, property lines removed a little bit. That's part of the replat because of a drainage easement.
I guess I'm not sure if that was part of this. The explanation I was given was to make a lot appropriate size for a potential buyer.
Okay. All right,
Jeff,
open up the public hearing.
Jeff, the boundary, in other words, the boundary property line in the back hasn't changed, right?
No, that's not getting pushed farther out the.
It's just the
Yeah.
side yards are changing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
by Mr. Dolly at first.
Second it.
Second by Mr. Stonebarger. Any discussion by the board? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Number 6, North Lake Drive Edition, rezoning.
This, all right, let's turn on the zoning real quick. The petitioners are requesting that this be rezoned. It's currently zoned R1, single-family residential. They want it to be rezoned to RG, residential garage district. As you can see, it is currently completely surrounded by R1 zoning. And the minimum requirements for the RG district are spelt out in section 21.1001 and chapter 21.23 of the ordinances. And the petitioners, the one area that they haven't met the rule is that according to the 21.2302, no area shall be eligible unless it contains a minimum of 1 acre and has 300 feet of improved street frontage. And these 2 lots currently contain about 0.75 acres, but when we rezone, we include to the midpoint of the adjacent right-of-way, which would put the area at approximately 1.11 acres. And currently, the lots are adjacent to approximately 242 feet of improved right-of-way. But if Pheasant Lane were to get improved, it'd be adjacent to approximately 397 feet of improved right-of-way. Another requirement of the garage district, number 2.g, is they must have a paved driveway. And the petitioners would like to allow to have a dirt driveway. And they're requesting this because the Pheasant Lane isn't improved, and that's just a dirt road right now, so they don't want to pave a driveway and then drive on dirt.
So their driveway would be coming off Pheasant Lane?
Yes.
Okay.
And with that, I'll let you guys discuss it.
This is a perfect area for this type of zoning with where it is, and we've talked about this area many, many times, so. Any other, open up the public hearing? Questions, comments?
The applicants are here if you have questions for them.
Okay, did you want to make a statement, or, yeah, come on up. You've waited a long time today for this.
hope you're
It'll take
wore
you
out.
about 3 minutes and you'll be out of here too.
I'm tired, so this don't take long. But, I'm Doug and it's my wife Jackie. Our plans are for this is sometime to retire up here on 510 North Lake Drive. And right now we have a cabin there, and hopefully we'll expand from that to make our residence. So directly across from that then is my hope, more so than my wife's, is to have a garage there. I have spoken with all the landowners around it, and I think you guys got copies of that, or? Yep. And everybody was in agreement, they were for it, and I know there was 2 people on the list that had not signed the list, but I did speak with them afterwards, and they are for it. And I know there's other garages on that side of the road, then that doesn't make it that I automatically get a garage or nothing, but we don't want to take away from anything from the bike trail. We like the bike trail. We've improved our lot as much as we can, but all we want is a garage there with an access off the road that's currently there. And I have spoken with Doc Howard in regards to the road, and he said that would be fine if I use somebody, because there is an issue with the road. It's not exactly cut where the road should be, but.
What about the trees in there that are going to face Highway or the North Lake Drive? Would they stay in?
We've cleared a lot of those trees out of there, and I don't know if you look, we've planted flowers and some pine trees. So we kind of expect that just to stay as it is and not really improve much on that side other than what we have right now. And that's just flowers and some pine trees now. But it's a lot nicer than it used to look.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're not just gonna build just a junky garage. I want it to be nice to match our house. So, I mean, I'm just not just gonna put up a pole shed or nothing. I know, talk to Jeff, and I'm willing to build a decent.
But the garage could happen now in the house down the road. Is that what you're saying? Or would you build a new garage? If you get the rezoning, build a new garage?
My plan,
No.
as far as I would be an owner, I would just have the garage. I just want the garage. The garage should still be there, and I guess all I'd have to put in the garage is a 10 by 20 area for a bathroom. I just don't want the bathroom. That's what I'm really after. And I guess I could build the garage with the bathroom now.
Yeah, as it's currently zoned R1 is for single-family residential, so it would have to meet the requirements to make it a house, which is, like he said, a bathroom and a kitchen. And then if it was rezoned to the residential garage, then the bathroom and kitchen would not be allowed, and it would be just a
Right.
garage.
Yep.
There aren't any
Okay.
utilities there anyway, are there?
No.
There's no water or sewer?
There is on Pheasant Lane, it goes down part way.
Oh, it does come past that lot, huh?
Yes.
I'll turn on the sanitary sewer layer. Zoom out a little bit. It goes all the way down to Antelope on that side of the road. So there is some that is there that could be looked into.
So at the corner
Okay.
of South Lake Drive and Antelope, that's a residential home there, correct?
It's zoned R1 as a residential home. I'm not sure what it's being.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Right across from that
Yep.
is a garage only.
And then the other structure's just a garage.
Yeah, you got a garage at 518, and then at 534 is just garage only.
Okay, anybody here to speak on behalf of it?
I guess I'd like to make a couple comments
Okay.
from engineering standpoint. If they choose not to do the improved driveway at this time,
And we'd like that to be maybe a condition that at such time that Pheasant Lane is improved, that be reconsidered as a requirement. In other words, if enough development happens along there that Pheasant Lane becomes a paved road, that the paved driveway should also be a condition of that.
We can add that to the motion. Okay, I think with that, I'll close the public hearing and open it up for a motion. Anybody want?
I motion to approve the rezoning of the R1 district with the waiver right to protest that if Pheasant Lane is paved, they have to put in a paved driveway.
Okay. Got a motion by first and second. All in favor, say aye. All discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. Gateway Overlay District.
That's only if you guys stay for the rest of the meeting.
You can't leave now.
All right. During the July 6, 2015 City Council meeting, the City Council initiated amendment to the zoning ordinance modifying section 21.5414, which regulates building construction within the Gateway Overlay District. This amendment was initiated because there was some potential retail businesses that are considering building within the Gateway Overlay District, but would like to construct their building with their franchise colors instead of the colors that are earth tone, which is what's currently allowed in the Gateway Overlay District. And then whenever there's an overlay, or whenever there's a amendment to Title 21, it must come to the Plan Commission before the City Council can act. So on the screen right now, I have the changes shown, and I'll read those. 21.5414, number 1, says, all exterior surfaces on any building or structure shall be approved by the building official, who may refer any exterior surface request to the City Council for approval. So that was changed from before. It said it shall be earth tone and color. And then on number 2, we took out number 2, we took out point number 2, which is materials described in this section are utilized for a minimum of 70% of each respective wall facing any front or side setback. So those were the changes that are being made, are requested to be made, and then you guys make the recommendation to council.
I think that
Okay.
what's happened is just like a couple of instances we've had tonight. 10 years ago or 3 years ago, the circumstances were different. When they did this overlay, I think it was probably a good idea that it didn't get a lot of different things, but things have really changed, because that's hopping out there, but it's not gonna hop if some big organization comes in, wants to put a store, and if they have to change, Home Depot has to change their colors to brown, they're not gonna come. They're not gonna change their colors. I think this is an important, or maybe a must change in what we're doing.
I agree.
Would
Definitely.
I agree with that as well, but I'm wondering, I'm just trying to understand about the going directly to the City Council. I mean, wouldn't that go to like Board of Adjustments or something? I mean, why does it go directly to the City Council?
I'll refer to Stanton on that one.
I think the intention was that if the building official gets a request, he could refer it to the City Council, because they're not going to be seeking variance relief. To your point, Mark, with regard to Board of Adjustment, they're not going to be seeking some variance or modification to the code. It's just Kenny, the building official, would want some cover from the City Council saying, this is the request I've been giving. It's an orange building. It's a or it's a whatever color it is. It's a bright orange building. I'd like to let it go here, but I want to defer it to you, City Council, so you know when you ride through the Gateway Overlay District that it's there, and let them sprinkle holy water on it.
I don't know, Stanton, has that ever come to us, though? I don't think there's any request has come to us. I think, Mark, what they're saying is that there's been some informal talk with the mayor and others, maybe, I don't know exactly who, but what happens if this would come in, and right now they can't. And so I think they're trying to do the proper channels now, by bringing it here, and then ultimately, if this gets approved here, then the city council would be glad to do it, because I think we know that that's a must to do that for 'em. So I.
Then you would approve it, then Ken can make the decision, right? And approve it?
Yeah, well, Ken does anyway.
Not each individual one, do you?
When they come in as for a permit application, they're gonna show me the site and everything else, and if I'm comfortable with it straight up, it stops right there. It's just if it gets to a point where somebody comes in and they've got a pink zebra house and whatever, and I don't have that comfort with it, and I want a CYA, you know, then I'll forward it to the council and let them say yes, just so I don't get retributed.
Okay, okay. We understand. We understand. All right. Where are we at with this? Do we,
We need a motion. and-
just a motion and
Oh,
a
yeah, but you'd vote on it, so it's a resolution.
public hearing, and there's no one here the way it appears? Speak on Mr. Other than staff, okay. Staff is very important, but, okay, let's, have a motion then, and then we'll have
I'll make a
more
motion to
discussion.
approve the
Blake,
resolution.
got a motion by Blake?
I'll second.
Mark? All right, now you want to make those sly comments?
What?
You were sarcastic a minute ago, say them now.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. All right, let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
I have no
Old
old
business?
business, no new business, so I just need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion?
Also move.
Second?
Second.
Motion passed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passed.
One more. Dennis, one more.